Hi, everyone. Welcome back for a brand new episode in our Cloud Tank podcast. Today, I have my colleague here, Z. Hi, Z. How are you?
Good. How are you, Joanna?
No, I'm doing really well. I'm excited about our topic today, which is the best ways to secure an AWS cloud. But before we dive into that, we wanted to touch on the AWS shared responsibility model. We know that the customer versus AWS, there's some specific roles that they're in charge of. If you want to elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so security is very important topic when it comes to the cloud computing. I remember like 5 to 10 years ago, like when people were trying to move to the cloud, everybody was like, "My data is not secure in the cloud. How I
Right.
should secure data?" and so on. And they basically there is a thing called shared security
Hmm.
responsibility model. So uh, what that means is like there is a two type of main major security, like security of the cloud and security in the cloud.
Hmm.
So what does mean security of the cloud is like the actual infrastructure of the cloud environment. For example, the data centers, the computers and
Hmm.
hardware and the electricity, networking, all the regions, uh, that security of that physical infrastructure of the cloud is the responsibility of the cloud providers such as AWS or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud Platform. They are
Hmm.
responsible for the security of that infrastructure side. So they have
Right.
all the systems. You can go on YouTube and watch how Google actually secure their data center. Nobody can come in or out without any, approvals and all these things. And it's very uh, tight security. You see like Hollywood movies. So it's like that actually. So even they have to change a little cable or something patching. There is a whole process to go through
And
it.
they're
So
responsible for it.
yeah, so they are very tight about it and they follow all the strict guidelines and all these things. There are like cameras all over the place 24/7 on AWS, and all cloud providers do that. And the
Hmm.
second thing is cloud security in the cloud. Like what data basically you are putting in the cloud, how you are setting up your network, firewall, security, identity management, user passwords, and all that type of things.
User
Security in the
information
cloud,
too, right? The
yeah, the
data.
data and all this information, that is the responsibility of the customer, that is you who are using the cloud.
Hmm.
So if you put, for example, your photos, which shouldn't be public, but you expose your uh, storage to a public view,
Hmm.
it's not it's not, it's your
No,
mistake
no, it
basically.
compromises then the user. You don't seem credible because you'll. It seems like you'll leak their information. Yeah, if it's not
Yeah.
secure.
So yeah, security. So we'll talk about today that what are the best practices to secure your AWS cloud environment. And we are talking specifically about the AWS, but same concept should be applied to other cloud providers as well. But we will be specific about AWS.
Okay, so we know the first thing we need to consider is securing the identity within the AWS cloud. So,
Yeah, before even security, I would say that you should have some kind of a strategy in place. Like, okay, how you want to prevent, uh, you know, uh,
hmm,
and then like detect if something goes wrong in your cloud. How
have a
you
plan of action.
a
Yeah,
plan of
before.
action, then how you would respond to it, how you will
Hmm.
fix the issues, remediate it, and go on. So that should be like some kind of a strategy in place. And
Hmm.
partners like us, Data Next, could help you actually define that strategy. Okay, how everything should be, how you can monitor your logging activity in the cloud, who should get notified if something goes wrong, and things like that,
Hmm.
threats and compliance issues and all that type of things. You should have some kind of a strategy in place, like security strategy. which
Right.
will streamline the process. Even you're a small, startup, or maybe, one man company using a cloud, you should know, okay, where to look if something goes wrong. You know,
Hmm.
I know a customer who were who were using S3 without knowing anything about it, and all
Oh.
of his data was in the S3 bucket. For example, he was selling some digital products, and he uploaded all the data to S3 because it provide durability, flexibility, but he didn't know anything about the security. He
Mm.
uploaded all the stuff into the S3 cloud, and later he noticed that there are like many people are downloading without actually paying him. and
Oh my
and
goodness.
how it happened, because one guy bought it and he got a link to download the files, and he sent it to his friend. He could
Yeah.
also download without actually logging it. And so then he asked us, hey, can you help us? And then I actually set up some security rules that this data should not be exposed unless you pay, and generate a unique URL for every purchase, and
Yes.
go and download that thing. So things like that usually happen. So I mean, you should have like some kind of strategy in place, and if you're moving to the cloud, best is to work with uh,
Technology partner.
yeah, technology
So you can
partner
guide.
who can actually set up everything beforehand.
Mm.
So yeah, the first thing again, securing your identity, like you said. Do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's definitely important to have a plan of action and a strategy. There's a lot of powerful tools that we can use, but if you don't know how to use them, or you mistreat them, it could actually be a counter effect, and it could do you harm more than good. So I definitely think that's important. So now let's dive into the 5 common areas on where we can tighten up the security in the AWS cloud. First being securing our identity, right? Which is referred to IAM.
Yeah, so AWS provides a service called Identity and Access Management, which is
Hmm.
IAM in short. And IAM actually provides you the where you can define all the users, groups, roles, and policies that are going to be in your AWS cloud. And this is very important service in a sense. So what you can do, like for example, you have a team of developers uh, working on a project, but once the project is over, you should actually go and visit your IAM,
Mm.
review any users who no longer need access, just
Hmm.
deactivate them. There is a thing called access keys in AWS IAM. For example, if you want to programmatically access AWS cloud, the way you can do is using the access keys. So
Mm.
access keys you generate, which is unique. If somebody has those access keys and the permissions are attached to those access keys, they can really hurt you in a sense.
Mm. Hmm.
So the best practice is never upload your access keys to a source control repository like GitHub or somewhere.
Yeah.
I've seen this mistake. Once one of my trainee
Hmm.
developer, he actually uploaded the GitHub access keys, sorry, the access AWS access keys to GitHub. And what
Oh
happens?
no.
I got a notification from AWS, there's something wrong with your AWS account, and I was like,
Oh
okay,
wow.
what's wrong? And I saw like huge uh, machines are running in my account in every region, and they are generating Bitcoin
Oh my
mining.
goodness.
And luckily, I caught it within like 3 to 4 hours, and
Yeah.
but it cost me, I think, maybe 500, $600.
Yeah,
But
it could be
AWS was pretty kind. They were they
understanding.
they understanding, and they said, okay, it's not your mistake, so we waive you that money.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
yeah, so the best practice is like how you secure your identity. So if you no longer need those access keys, make sure you delete them, deactivate them, user IDs. Um, Also review the policies that are
Mm.
attached to those users, groups, and accounts. Uh, because if you don't, for example, if you give admin access to every account, they can do anything within that. But if your ID only needs to access, for example, S3 or only need to access RDS, you should be very specific about it. Like, okay, grant only permissions to specific resource,
Right. Hmm.
and uh, and even if you are giving access to specific resource, you should identify, okay, what is the in that service specific resource. For example, you need access to certain RDS database, just grant access to only one RDS database, not
Right. All of
everything in
them.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of a best practice. And also security identity, one of the common thing is like to enable MFA, like multi-factor authentication. So you have to
Hmm.
provide your password and additional to that, a token which refresh every minute or 30 seconds. So you
Hmm.
provide that token as well to log into your AWS account. So that
Are
is
those
usually,
like the little, like, to verify you're not a robot, where they ask you to maybe click on different images
yeah,
or?
that type of a thing. Plus, there is an app called Google Authenticator, which
Mhm.
gives you a unique token every
Mhm.
30 seconds. So you
Oh,
have to
okay.
provide your password plus that token to actually log
Yeah.
into it.
Okay.
So the benefit is like it's called, I think, temporary time factor or password or something. Uh, but it's very common, like a multi-factor authentication to
Yeah.
use when one comes to the securing your identity.
Okay. Great. And what about securing the network, which is the next common area?
Yeah, so the common area to hit is the network security. So uh, the network security is very important in a sense. For example, when you launch any resource or service in AWS, you are actually launching in some kind of a network. But if your network is open to public, anyone actually can access that service. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you launch your database, but it's in the public network, that means say internet can access it, and anyone with the link and knowledge of it can actually access from any computer, anywhere in the
Wow.
world,
Mhm.
which expose a certain security threat. Because if
Right.
your data got leaked, and this happened time to time, even for a small window, somebody um, you know enable the public access or something happened, so it can cause data breach and all that type of things. So to avoid that, you should review all the security groups in your AWS accounts. Make sure they are not open to public if they don't have to. Disable all the public internet access where it shouldn't be necessary. Also review basically EC2 instances that are running in public subnets or things like that. Also, there is a concept called Bastion host,
Mhm.
which means that if you want to access your private resources, you actually log into a Bastion host first and then log into the private resources.
Right.
So sometimes what happens, like if you forgot about Bastion host is on, or maybe it's got compromised, so make sure if they don't have to run Bastion hosts, just stop running them. So
Mhm.
securing your network has a lot of complexities, but the most common, and you can say for general audience, is like securing, make sure the ports and the internet access and the VPNs and all these things are uh, properly secure.
Okay. Okay, great. And what about data protection?
Yeah, so
Security of the
the
data in the cloud. Yeah.
Yeah, so security of the data in the cloud again is your responsibility. So AWS has a lot of services which stores data. For example, your photos, images, and object storage, videos. That type of data you can store in S3. Your
Mm.
transactional data, like your basically your data, that application data, you can store in uh, DynamoDB, or you can store in RDS databases or Redshift, like basically transactional data. And then there is another type of data called logging data, for example, logs generated by your application and all AWS environment. So review all your S3s, like make
Mm.
sure if they are not public, publicly open. If you need to have public open, make sure create a separate bucket that only open for public, and it doesn't have the data that shouldn't be public. Also, make sure encryption is enabled on the bucket. So encryption is very important. Like I remember there was a data breach, I think 20 years ago or something, when encryption was not very common concept.
Mm.
And what happened? The hacker was like an insider uh, employee of the
Oh,
company
wow.
of the data
Mhm.
center, and what he was actually doing is like uh, the data files of the database. He was just actually opening it in a notepad, and he the data was not encrypted, so he can see all the credit cards that are
Right.
stored in
Oh,
the
wow.
database. And he was just like, using those, and people were like, uh, so he so finally, they figure out after a long investigation how he was hacking his stuff. So that's type of things happen. So if you enable encryption, even somebody has those files, they can't do anything. So that
Right.
gives you a peace of mind as well, like
Yeah,
from the
definitely.
from AWS side as well, and like your data is in the cloud, but from if AWS something got compromised, which shouldn't be, but I mean, you will have like peace of mind that your data is encrypted.
Right.
So also the log files that uh, basically generating logs of everything, make sure that doesn't contain any PHI and PII data. So for example,
Okay.
developers sometimes what they do, they put some kind of code. Okay, I access certain username and email. His email is this, just to check if they are doing something. And if they forget to disable those loggings, that actually go into the production. And people who are just reviewing, monitoring the data of the logs, for example, they might see these information, coming in the log file, which might expose PHI, PII, or that type of thing. So make sure these logs don't have any kind of, private information or sensitive data, basically.
Right. What about monitoring? So we know that monitoring is very important when it comes to security. How is this another way to enhance security on in AWS?
Yeah, so monitoring is again critical. You can only fix if you know what is happening in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what is happening, you can't fix anything.
Mm,
So part of working with the partners like us is that we have experience working with all different type of customers and clients and environments and use cases, that we know like what are the common threats and issues comes with the security of the cloud, in the cloud and off the cloud. So we can actually set up, a very good baseline things,
mm,
and then set up a monitoring things to actually tighten up even more. So it's a process. Like same thing like performance tuning. You can't tune it unless you see the issues coming in your systems.
yeah.
So then like you take a step and iterate through it, and you go with it. Okay, how to actually fix it? So there are like common ways in AWS cloud, like cloud watch is a
Could you set
service.
up alerts in CloudWatch or?
Yeah, you
uh,
can set up, and there are like a lot of ways to do it. So first is like make sure your logs are encrypted.
Mm,
Second is you enable CloudWatch service everywhere where you are using. And another thing, what you can do, you can move those log files to a centralized uh, search engines, like, or centralized service for analytics and query, for example Elasticsearch or Splunk, these type of services, where you can actually search during the time. Okay, what happened from, for example, 8 a.m. in the morning. If you see something abnormal activity, you can actually search through that. So it's a
okay.
very good practice, retrieve all the logs from AWS and other services, and put them into a centralized services where you can actually monitor those log files. Also, monitoring of VPC logs, for example, network logs, is very important. For example, somebody is trying to access your system and they're keep getting rejected. So
Mm,
you can actually see, okay, maybe attackers are coming trying to actually hack you or something
Yeah,
happening. So it's a good to have like monitoring enabled everywhere.
right. Yeah. And what are some additional security tools in AWS? Like we know we have AWS Security Hub, AWS Inspector, Amazon Inspector.
Yeah, so these are services are very value added in a sense.
Hmm.
Security Hub actually reviews your um, uh, security posture across your all AWS accounts. So all the services it says, okay, what are the main issues in the security and how to fix them. It will actually give you instructions as well. And for example, it says, oh, you don't have encryption enabled on S3 bucket, or maybe this S3 bucket is public. So
Mm.
it follows a basically CIS benchmarks from security guidelines, and guide you based on those, like okay, how tight your security should be.
Yeah.
Inspector is basically look into your specific services, what's
Mm.
happening in that, and same thing with the guard duty. Audit manager, Macy actually is a machine learning service which looks into your S3 that it has something sensitive data or not. If it detects that, okay, this looks like a social security number,
Mm.
are you sure you want to keep that in the data or not? Also, like when you're developing your applications, there are like a lot of passwords that you need to interact with. For
Hmm.
example, you're working on a Java application which needs to connect to a database, so you need a database password or connection or API keys. So to protect those, there is a service called Secret Manager. You can use that, leverage that, and it's all part of a good architect and design as well. So when you're basically
Okay.
starting a new project, make sure you have security architect also in place with the enterprise or cloud architect as well, who are like designing these solution. Make sure they have covered from the security perspective as well.
Right. Yeah, because it's important to have all of our data secure in the cloud. And it's a myth, right? Your data is actually more secure in the cloud than it would be on an on-premise center. Um,
Yeah, that's my you can say um, that's what I think.
yeah.
Yes, I think what I have seen, like people think, hey, my data is secure when I have computer in front of me, but you
Yeah.
don't know like what is happening in that computer, and like
Yeah.
maybe you put all the security in the application, but somebody walks in and take the hard drive out of your
Yeah.
computer.
Or it just dies. The hard
Yeah.
drive just stops working
So
when it
basically,
fails.
yeah, the cloud gives you durability, also other benefits. Plus, the security is also now a part of it. And I mean, a lot of big enterprises now adopting cloud, and everything you
Yeah.
see in the recent year
Yeah.
is happening because of the cloud computing, like startups like Airbnb, Amazon, and all
Yeah.
these things becoming huge because they have everything is
Scale with the
generating
cloud.
data. Yeah, so they
Yeah.
can scale easily.
Yeah, well, this is great. And if you guys want to learn more about the best practices to secure your AWS cloud, we will be leaving a link in the description to download our ebook. And if you want to learn more, you can always reach out to us. I will also leave our social media links and email in the description. See, and we hope to see you guys soon.
Thank you.